As a Leo rising, have you ever stopped to really wonder and think about why you may garner so much attention? That's a general statement, right? But from what I've seen, reading natal charts and seeing how those natal charts play out in real life, is that Leo risings do tend to garner attention, for better or for worse, and whether they like it or not. Your natural expression garners attention. But what I find really fascinating is why some Leo risings love the spotlight. They love to perform, they love to be on, while others absolutely hate it. Why others do not like the attention. They don't like being seen, they don't like being visible, and even worse, they don't like it when people assign that role to them. So in this video, this is the second part of my Leo Rising series. I will be discussing the role of the performer and whether it actually fits you as Leo Rising. So if you want to know more, stick around. You definitely don't want to miss this. Hello, my loves. As always, I hope that this video finds you well and in excellent spirits. If you're new around here, hi, hello, and welcome. My name is Mel. I'm a professional astrologer and I'm the founder of Divine Feminine Works, where I help people unlock their divinity and discover their magic. So if you're new, welcome. And as always, if you are returning, welcome back. So this video is the second video of my Leo Rising series. If you haven't watched the first video, it's right here and it'll be linked in the description box below so you can check it out. In the first video, I talk about Leo Rising basics, like what it means to be a Leo Rising, your house setup, all of the astrology 101 stuff. This video takes it a little deeper and we're examining your rising sign and sort of the role that you are assigned based on it. Okay. So by virtue of Leo being your rising sign, it means that Leo is your first house. Now, by way of technical astrology stuff, I use the whole sign house system. So for some, and I've gotten this comment on some of my videos where they're like, well, I've got Leo and Virgo as the first house. That means that you're just using a different house system, likely Placidus, right? But whole sign house system means that the whole sign of Leo makes up your first house. And that's the house system I use. And that's how I determine all of the things I'm talking about. So you might want to check out your natal chart and see what house system you're using. And yeah, okay. But in any event, Leo is your first house. And so when it comes to first house Leo, you express yourself, and likely your physical appearance reflects the characteristics of Leo. So, also by way of technical astrology stuff, it bears mentioning that every single planet takes joy in a particular house, meaning that if that planet is in its favorite house, the house where it finds its joy, it rejoices. It really functions well. It's at home. The energy can be a little potent. And when it comes to the first house, this is the house where Mercury finds its joy and where it rejoices. This is important because when we're talking about the role of Leo rising, right? The performer. That's sort of the performer, the archetype, the king, the queen. That is the essence of Leo energy. Now, especially if you're someone who doesn't really vibe with those characteristics, you may be assigned those roles anyway because you express yourself in that way. Maybe you speak with authority, right? Like a king or a queen, right? Maybe you treat people like peasants. No shade, no judgment here, right? But how you express yourself may come across as very Leo. Also, how you look may come across as very Leo, right? Maybe you've got the hair, you've got the mane, you just shine, right? And that's why you typically garner attention because you can't help but shine. You are ruled by the sun. Your chart ruler is the sun, right? And so, for better or for worse, you garner attention. But what comes into play, particularly the subject of this video, is when that role of performer, of monarch, of king or queen doesn't quite fit you. And so when we talk about the first house, you are assigned that role because you may express yourself in that way or you look that way. And what do we do as humans, right? When we see something, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck to us, right? And so, as Leo rising, even if you do not vibe with any of those characteristics, you do indeed perhaps come across that way. And so as a result, people treat you that way. And what happens with performers? We always want them to be on. They have to be performing. By virtue of being a performer, it means that you always have an audience. So you're constantly visible, you're constantly seen. And maybe there are things required of you. Even if we don't look at Leo rising as the performer per se, and let's say we look at Leo rising as the king or the queen or the monarch, there are certain expectations that come with that. People look to you for leadership. People look to you to guide them, right? And maybe that's not your bag either. Maybe you're like, listen, I have enough problems leading myself. Why are you following me? Right? Why are you looking at me? I'm just trying to do me and you are just emulating me, right? Those can be sort of characteristic of Leo risings. And for better or for worse, you may like it or you may not. Okay. And so it's really important to understand why people treat you that way because it's not just I feel like often astrology gets very reductive, right? Oh, you're a Leo rising, so of course you garner attention. It's why. Why? Because you're ruled by the sun. You may look, you may be strikingly beautiful, right? Especially if you're like a Leo rising with Venus and Leo in your first house. Good Lord, you're probably like a supermodel, okay? So, how you look, how you express yourself will always garner attention. It could be something as simple as maybe you project when you speak. Again, Mercury finds its joy and rejoices in the first house. And so the way that you speak with authority or you project or you're just loud as fuck, right? Like that garners attention. And these may be things that you're not even conscious of. You may have the most amazing mane of hair. I'm talking about it looks feline. Maybe you have feline features, okay? Maybe your hair is just huge. There's something that you know who that reminds me of for those of us 80s and 90s kids and you used to watch TGIF. Remember Boy Meets World and Topanga? Topanga had the most amazing hair. Like that is definitely like Leo rising territory. Maybe that's you, right? Maybe that's how you show up. So that's why people assign that role to you. They look at you and they say, "Oh, I got to follow this person," or "I just can't stop looking at them. I can't stop watching them. I want to be like them." Even if you kind of want to be in the shadows and want to be left alone. So it's important to understand that.
Hey friend, real quick. So I know you've probably been watching some of my videos and you're like, okay, this is great or this is really interesting, but how does it apply to me? Well, the first place that you would start is with your rising sign. Your rising sign is arguably one of the most important placements in your natal chart. So whether you know your rising sign or not, I created this free guide called Your Rising Sign Strategy. It not only helps explain your rising sign and your chart ruler, but most importantly, it helps you understand how your rising sign shapes your decision making, as well as what that all means when it comes to career, money, and relationships. So if you want to grab the free guide, you can either scan the QR code on screen, especially if you're watching on TV, or if you're watching on mobile or anywhere else, the link is in the description box below. Like I said, it's completely free. And if you're new to my work, this would be the best place to start. So enjoy, and hopefully it's informative. Now, back to the video.
So now let's go back to this role of performer. And like I said before, performer naturally includes an audience, right? You're typically not just performing for yourself, you're performing for an audience. And so, how this may show up in real life is that people expect you to be the spokesperson, they expect you to be the leader, they expect you to do the work that maybe they don't want to do. Right. When it comes to making difficult decisions, when you think about a king or a queen, right, they're not just royal and regal and they enjoy all these things. They make the hard decisions that affect everybody else. That's what it means to be a leader. That's what it means to lead, to be a king or a queen. And maybe that kind of responsibility is just too much for you. You don't want to be responsible for other people. You don't want to influence, and I use that word intentionally, you don't want to influence other people's decisions, even though subconsciously or without you realizing it, that's exactly what you're doing. And then when you realize it, maybe you're annoyed. Maybe you're like, "Ugh, I don't want that much impact on people." Because what ends up happening if the king or the queen doesn't do what the collective, right, what people want them to, they can be ousted, they can be killed, right? There is this sort of dichotomy between, or not this dichotomy, this dynamic of we want you to lead, but that can quickly turn into angry mob. We don't like how you are leading. And that can be incredibly intimidated if you're not conscious of it and if you don't like it, right? Leo rising is all about visibility. Now, this doesn't have to be as dramatic, and I use that word intentionally too. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as you're the king or the queen. This could just be at work, right? At work, you could always be the face of the project. You could always be the team lead. Everyone could look to you for guidance, or you always get called on, even in school or something like that, right? That's very much indicative of Leo energy. And again, those who are not comfortable with visibility often struggle with this. And this is where things get really interesting because, as I'm thinking of this, I'm like, okay, so leader, influencer, garnering attention. So many people want that, especially in this day and age where attention is a very big part of the economy, right? Attention can literally equal money and wealth. So naturally, a lot of people are like, I want attention. I want to influence. I want to be an influencer. But what happens when you don't want that? What happens when the characteristics of Leo are repugnant to you or you just don't like it? Right? Like you're just not, it doesn't, you don't like to stand out. That's where your chart ruler comes in. And this is how you differentiate different Leo risings. Because even though, as a Leo rising, you may share the same physical characteristics as another Leo rising, you may express yourself similarly. How that expression really comes across in real time is very much tied to your chart ruler. And as a Leo, your chart ruler is the sun. Now, the sun is always going to shine regardless. It is perhaps, think of it this way. When I think about the sun as the chart ruler for Leo, you could either think of it as the sun at noon, where it's like, baby, you're going to shine regardless. Everyone's going to see you. You can't hide even if you wanted to. Early morning sun, sunset sun, those are different degrees of shining, right? Now, when we talk about those who may really not be comfortable with that Leo rising, the attention and everything, you may have your sun in Aquarius, right? Aquarius is opposite to Leo. Now, it's not to say that you have sun in Aquarius that means that you don't like the spotlight at all. It means that a very large part of your personality is about the collective, right? You feel more comfortable as part of something, as in a group, right? Even though you're an individual, even though you have your own quirks and your own like weird idiosyncrasies, you identify perhaps more as the collective, not the star of the show, the performer who's in the spotlight and on stage, right? That may be like the sun setting, right? As opposed to high noon. Meanwhile, if you're a Leo rising with Leo in the first house, girl, you cannot, girl or boy, sorry, you cannot help but shine. You will always garner attention. And likewise, that is what energizes you. That's what keeps you going is the attention and the influence that you have, right? Now, if you've got your sun in a fire sign like Aries or Sagittarius, that attention may also feel good too, because those are fire signs, right? And, the sun is exalted in Aries. So if you are a Leo rising with an Aries sun, oh yeah, baby, you like that heat and you like that attention. And maybe you like even starting some shit too. Like that may also have you feeling good. But let's say you have your sun in like a water sign, perhaps. Maybe you're Leo rising with Pisces sun. Maybe you're Leo rising with a Cancer sun. It's not that you don't like the attention. It's like you may be a little less direct with it, right? Or especially if you've got like your sun in Pisces, you're all about selflessness, right? Sort of on the same spectrum as Aquarius energy and the energy of the collective. Pisces is more, Sun in Pisces would be more attuned to the things that aren't so direct, that aren't so in your face. You may still influence people, and you likely do, right? Because still, you're Leo rising, but it may be in an indirect sort of way. It may be in how you make people feel, not necessarily how you express yourself or how you show up or look or influence people directly. So you see how your rising sign is tempered or is filtered through the lens of your chart ruler. And in this case, it's the sun. So that's why when you hear people saying, "I'm a Leo rising, but I'm not with all that. I don't need attention. I don't like attention." It probably has a lot to do with where their sun is placed in their natal chart, right? Interesting food for thought. So when it comes to this role, this assignment that society may place on you as a Leo rising, as the performer, as the monarch, as the king, the queen, the influencer, it's literally because of how you show up. But what's important for you to remember is that you don't have to accept the role that anybody gives you. And this is where I think a lot of astrology online kind of gets it wrong because they have this sort of rigid ideology of a sign of its energy, and you have to fit into that. And astrology in reality is not like that at all. Yes, there are characteristics of Leo rising that you just can't help, but the placement of your sun, and not just that, the other placements in your natal chart will add a different flavor to that ideology of influencer, of king, of queen, etc. Right? So you're going to want to take a look at not just the characteristics of your Leo rising and whether they fit you or not as the role of the performer, but where the sun is in your natal chart and how that may color how you express yourself, how you like attention, maybe why you don't like attention, and everything in between. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about the shadow side of this Leo rising energy, and that is performing for others, right? It's interesting because when I was really thinking about this, you know how we love like professional athletes, performers, entertainers, and of course, they make a lot of money for what they do. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, they work for us. They are here to entertain us. If we don't give them attention, they don't get money. And that can be that can be a difficult thing to deal with because a big part of your personality becomes performing for others, always being on, always being visible. What happens when you want to retreat? What happens when you don't want to sing? What happens when you don't want to play ball or you're injured or you can't? If your validation hangs on the attention of others, it really speaks to valuing yourself based on what others want, right? That's not a healthy place to be. It's not the attention itself that is the shadow or too much attention. It's when that attention becomes the lifeline of your personality. Your authenticity is based on the show. Your authenticity is based on the performance and the clapping, the applause, the accolades. But what happens when they want to throw tomatoes at you? What happens when they don't like the performance? What happens when you just want privacy, right? Those are things that you really need to think about as a Leo rising. Because remember, this role that they've assigned to you, it's because of how you show up, consciously or unconsciously, right? And so if you find that you are showing up all the time, you're on all the time, but you live for the applause, you live or die by the applause or the attention, it's time to rein things in and it's time to really think about who you are authentically and to remove the validation from the hands of the audience and to bring it back to yourself and to shine no matter who claps, who boos, or whatever. It's not about the audience, it's about you. So it's really important to understand how you're showing up and how showing up and the result of showing up shapes sort of why you do things and maybe even how you do things. I think that's a wonderful way to start examining that shadow side of Leo rising. So, to sum it all up, Leo rising, are you but the performer? Perhaps. Do you like it? Maybe not so much, but it really depends on where the sun is in your natal chart, and that can sort of let you know how you feel about the role of performer, of monarch, of influencer. And again, you don't have to take any role that you are assigned. Your job as Leo rising is to show up authentically you. Those who love it will love it. Those who don't won't. And either group is fine. And that's ultimately what you have to understand about this placement, right? living authentically in your truth, you will naturally influence people. That's just I don't wanna say it as though that's just it because, again, even if you're not comfortable with that, your influence and how you show up naturally and authentically will always either impress somebody, it will either always garner attention from someone, but whether they like it or not is none of your business. All you have to do is be yourself. All right, my loves. So that's pretty much all I've got for you for this video on Leo rising. Again, if you haven't watched the first Leo rising video, the link to that is in the description box below. And whether you're Leo rising or not, maybe you're cross watching this for a special Leo rising in your life and you want to know more about your particular rising sign, don't forget to download my free rising sign guide. No, don't forget to download my free rising sign strategy guide. It's not just about your rising sign and your chart ruler, it helps you understand how you show up and how you make decisions. All right. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for you. So, if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. If you know a Leo rising out there that needs to hear this message, definitely share this video with them. And if you like this content and you want more, consider joining the channel membership. You will get early access to videos plus members only videos as well. All right, my loves. So hopefully this was informative. Hopefully you got it. And hopefully you understand that you don't necessarily have to take the role that you are assigned. All you got to do as Leo rising is show up authentically as yourself. All right, my loves. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.